Hey folks, Coach Rob here from Tailwind Coaching, and getting ready to head out for a bit of a training ride here in the next few minutes. But it's perfect time since it's a midday time. Talk a little bit about caffeine, using caffeine to sort of boost your cycling fitness, your training, and really how hard you can train, how much you can train, and how fast you can go. So I'm going to do my favorite pre-ride ritual, which is a double espresso, just to get a little bit of a caffeine boost for things. So if I flip around, you got my trusty Gaja Classic here, and we're going to be rolling with a Colombian City Roast today. So here we go. That should pour out as a pretty perfect ristretto right there. But while that actually finishes, let's talk a little bit about caffeine. Caffeine is obviously a very legal stimulant, a very legal performance enhancer, especially for cycling and endurance sports, endurance athletes. It's actually very interesting. There's been a lot of research on it in the last few years anyway. In fact, a 2002 study from the Australian Institute of Sport basically was saying that when given caffeine, the performance in a 30-minute time trial improves by anywhere between 3 and 3.5%. Now, it's a very interesting thing to think about, where at 3 or 3.5% could actually mean the difference between taking a podium spot and 15th, 20th, 40th, 50th place. 3.5% over half an hour is a pretty long time. And that's actually just perfect. But interestingly, caffeine has a very, very different effect on different kinds of people. It should come as no surprise for those of you who have a little bit of knowledge in physiology and a little bit of knowledge in training and biochemistry and things like that. Anywhere between 2 and 5% is the average improvement that someone will see when ingesting caffeine. Now, of course, Sean Quigley, you're right. That is how Lance started. Caffeine is a gateway drug. But it's also a gateway to a whole lot of delicious coffee drinks like macchiatos and flat whites and things like that. But anyway, I digress back onto the topic there. That was very funny, Sean, actually. It was really very funny. Interestingly enough, there's been a lot of debate on the best delivery method for caffeine and the best delivery method for, or the best timing for that delivery method. And in fact, some of the recent research that has come out now shows that there is a very significant difference in delivery method. If you're going to drink caffeine, as I am now, I'm looking at a time to get out on the bike and really see the improvements in between 35 and 50 minutes and lasting for maybe 35 minutes to an hour after that peak serum caffeine concentration. If you're going to take something like a no-dose, which any of you who were freshmen in college anytime recently probably remember, you're talking anywhere more like an hour to an hour and 15 minutes for that to actually be absorbed into your system, reach the peak serum values, and give you some kind of benefit. So if you're having a drink, having an espresso, you're going to want to start anywhere between 35 and 50 minutes before you're actually going to be on the bike or training. Now, what's the dosage that you're going to need to really see some kind of benefit? It's interesting because for a long period of time, the recommended dosage was about 6 milligrams per kilogram of caffeine. So for someone who's 70 kilograms, you're talking 400 and some odd milligrams of caffeine. That's the equivalent of about 5 Red Bulls. And I don't know about you, but if I drank 5 Red Bulls, I wouldn't sleep for the next week, let alone perform well on the bike. And in fact, that brings up a great point too, that significant amounts of caffeine can be detrimental to performance as well. Sean, caveman coffee, is that something like bulletproof coffee? and while I wait for a response to that one, yeah, the actual effective dose, more recent research is showing that somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 milligrams per kilo of caffeine will be the upper limit of what would be effective. So if you're, about... We got Russia tuning in. How's Russia this time of year? Is it cold up there? Sean Quigley saying, Caveman Coffee, it's oil and grass-fed butter. MCT oil and grass-fed butter. So it's bulletproof coffee. Actually, yeah, I do start my day with that quite frequently, especially if I'm lifting in the gym. I will hit that before I get to the gym, anywhere between 45 minutes and an hour and 15 minutes. Very cold in Russia. And I'm complaining about 60 degrees here when I'm about to go out training. Awesome. It could be worse, I suppose. Have an espresso. Warm you up a little bit. Maybe a shot of Sambuca in there too. Not before you train. Not before you train, though. Yeah, anywhere between, going back to caffeine and the dosage. P. Callahan, how much caffeine do I do a day? I usually do, let's see, a cup of coffee can vary anywhere between about 80 and 140 milligrams of caffeine. So I will do one of those in the morning with my bulletproof coffee. I will typically do around lunchtime either a double shot Americano, which is about 4.5 ounces of espresso, somewhere in the neighborhood of 160 to maybe 300 milligrams of caffeine, depending on the strength of the espresso, the roast, the origin, how high it was grown, etc., etc., a lot of stuff like that. And that's pretty much it for the end of the day. If I do a late afternoon coffee, I always do a decaf, only because I do like to sleep once in a while, even though it doesn't show. I do like to sleep once in a while. So that's the answer to that question. Caveman Company, based on Bulletproof Coffee by Tate Fletcher, former UFC trainer. Awesome. That's really cool. I'll have to check that out. That's actually very cool. And Sean, you may know that they opened a Bulletproof Coffee in California, Bulletproof Coffee store in California as well, very recently too. Kind of cool to see that expanding and spreading a little bit. So, effective dose. And we touched on this a little bit. What's an effective dose and what's in each kind of drink? Your average Coca-Cola, Pepsi, something like that, you're talking anywhere between 80 and 100 milligrams of caffeine. Your average cup of coffee, again, varies significantly. Could be anywhere between 80, 150, maybe even more, depending on how strong it's brewed. Espresso, somewhere between 45 and 85 milligrams of caffeine per ounce. I had to think about that for a minute. Per ounce. Tastes delicious and beneficial too. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Sean makes a good point. Beneficial too. A bulletproof coffee or fat-based coffee early in the morning will help you really upregulate some fat-burning enzymes, and it's a great way to stay full for most of the day too, even if you're doing some kind of activity, especially if you're doing brain activity. If you're doing brain-type activities where you have to think a lot, it seems to be very, very good for that as well. I notice that especially if I'm treating patients in the mornings as well. So getting back here, caffeine anywhere between 45 milligrams and up from an ounce of espresso. So a double shot at 2.5 ounces or so could be somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 milligrams and up. And of course, caffeine tablets, if you're going to do a no-dose, they're usually about 100 milligrams per tablet, I believe. So very, very cool. Very, very cool stuff. As always, if you're going to do any kind of caffeine, I highly, highly, highly recommend you do it before you're going to compete with it. Do it in training. The best way to really figure out how it works. On It Nutrition, yes. Actually, I'm actually an affiliate for On It Nutrition, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I've heard of them as well. Best way to do caffeine, if you're going to attempt to use it, is to... Well, if you're going to attempt to use it in a race, hoping to get some benefit out of it, like a time trial, my recommendation is test different applications. So try having a double shot of espresso before you go out and train and do a 30-minute TT, see how it affects you. Next time, try maybe a triple shot, see how it affects you. Get an idea of how different amounts of caffeine will affect you and how different amounts of caffeine may be detrimental to you. Eventually you hit a point of diminishing returns where suddenly you go, oh, yeah, I'm jittery. I can't hold a line. My legs feel like crap. My stomach feels like crap. Alpha Brain is great too, actually. Yes, you're right, Sean. It is a good thing. I have not tried combining it with caffeine though yet. Typically, I like to try things on their own, and I really haven't had the what's the word I'm looking for here? The impetus to quit my coffee habit long enough to actually try it without the caffeine. My wife does use it too, though, and she seems to really like it. I have to give it a shot, though. Anyway, there is a point where diminishing returns come into effect, and you suddenly start to feel like crap, and that's generally a bad thing. You don't want that, especially when it comes down on race day. If you're you're halfway through your big race of the season, and then you realize, oh my God, I'm about to blow mud in my shorts because I drank half a pot of coffee this morning. That's no bueno. It's not a good thing. So make sure you test it in training as well. And that's pretty much it, man. It's it's one of those things that's a legal stimulant. It's a legal supplement. The WADA, the USADA removed it from their banned substance list. There's no upper limits of it for what you can and can't have. So use away. A little bit on the science, because I've got someone here asking what's a little bit of the science on it. The short answer, nobody is entirely sure what the science is. There have actually been some theories as to where the science involved is that your brain takes the caffeine, and the caffeine will actually block some of the neurochemicals in the brain that are responsible for sending pain signals, discomfort signals, things like that from your working muscles. So that's a possibility. It's a theorized mechanism. Honestly, the research is still out on it, so not entirely sure how it works, but pretty much all the studies do show it works, anywhere between a 2 and 5% gain. So damn, neuroreceptors are strange. You're 100% right. Neuroreceptors are very, very strange. Brain chemistry is something that human beings have not even begun to scratch the surface on. And honestly, I think that that's something that's going to be huge in the next 10, 15 years of competition. So keep an eye on that. Anyway, that's about it for me. I got to get out. I got about 30 minutes to get ready and get out before my caffeine kicks in. And I got a long set of intervals I got to do today. So thanks all of you for joining in. Thanks for watching. I'm going to post this up on the website, tailwind-coaching.com. You got any more questions or any more comments, shoot them to me there, or find me on Twitter at CoachRobDC. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it.